Mr. Nazar Arjun, who is the chairman of the board of Hovnanian School, and a little bit more happy to meet and greet Stephanie Torosian, who has been appointed as the new head of the school, Hovnanian School. It's another way of saying the new principal of Hovnanian School. We are going to discuss the present and the future of Hovnanian School. It is one of the most important institutions we have in the area within the community. It is truly a jewel of the community. It is an institution where we are not only proud of, but everybody is proud of New Jersey for having a school. And last Sunday I did mention, and maybe Nazar and Stephanie could help me, the impact of this school on the community has not been professionally studied. But I hope one day somebody could do the analysis and study the impact of the school. I personally think it has been extremely powerful and impacted the community in the most positive way, especially in the work we do in maintaining the Armenian identity and culture and way of life. I'd like to start with Nazar. Nazar, you've never ever refused our invitation, and I really appreciate this and thank you for joining us, because we would like to know the school. We would like to know as much about the school through you, and you are in the leadership position at the school. Give us the latest, Nazar, especially as it relates to Stephanie's appointment.
Sure. Thank you, Vartan, for providing us with this platform. The school has been on a growth trajectory for the last 5 or 6 years. Enrollment is up, our endowment is growing, our station within the community is growing. We're more central. You'll see us at more events. We're seeing more Armenian community organizations attend our events. So, again, we're on a growth path and in 2020, I think part of this is from this board's strategic plan, which was enacted in 2020. Part of it was to get our accreditations that we received at the time from NJIS. But in addition to that, we had other key goals. And one of those goals was, in terms of the school's leadership, we realized that for many years we put too much, and partly because of economics, right? We put too much on the shoulders of our head of school. So they had to be an excellent teacher, an excellent administrator, an excellent facilities manager, an excellent community organizer, an excellent speaker, all of these things. It was too much for one person. And so our strategic plan in 2020 always contemplated a leadership team led by a head of school. And so, but the planning was delayed a little bit because of COVID. During COVID, obviously, our acting head of school, Mr. Chris, did a phenomenal job shepherding the school through that chaotic time. And so the board, for the first time this year, was able to, I think it's the first time in the school's history, but I'm not sure, but I believe it's the first time in the school's history where we've made a proactive decision in terms of school leadership instead of a reactive one. And we basically, Mr. Chris is still with the school in a leadership capacity, acting as our chief operating officer, where he'll bring his talents to bear in terms of facilities management, community engagement, all of the things he does very well. And Ms. Torosian, who has been helping us out as a consultant for the last 2 years in terms of enrollment, in terms of the board's vision, Ms. Torosian has now been appointed by the board as our head of school, and she is in fact essentially the CEO of the school and is the board's employee. So she reports to the board, and everybody else now will report to her as leader.
What really struck me, and I just found out yesterday as we were talking about Stephanie with some friends, that she actually attended Hovnanian School. Give us more detail. What did you go after? What talents does she have? Give it the community whatever you can tell us about Stephanie, or the community wants to know as much as possible that the school is in good hands.
We've made a concerted effort to hire people at our school based on their abilities and based on achievement. And with Stephanie, when we asked her to join us as a consultant, it was because of her proven track record at Fusion Academies, which is a top-notch school of a different. It's a different type of school, Fusion Academy, and I'll let Stephanie talk about that a little bit. But they do one-on-one education there. But Stephanie, as an enrollment administrator there, really impacted their enrollment results, and so when we brought her on, it was for that purpose. But as we work with Stephanie, the board was really struck by the level of professionalism, the level of forethought, the reports that we would get, the level of thinking about consequences before choosing. Let's say I, as the board chair, went to Stephanie and said, Stephanie, I think we need to really focus on, I don't know, we have to improve our music program. The answer you get is not, okay, we'll do it. It's, that's a great idea. Let's think about why that may or may not work according to our mission, according to the vision for the school. So that was the kind of planned thinking that we needed, and that's what we see in Stephanie, and we're very excited to see it bear fruit at the school.
Stephanie Toroshin is next to Mr. Nazar. She's been very patiently waiting in front of the microphone to join in this conversation. Stephanie, let me just say that everything I hear about you, about the school's decision, is extremely, extremely positive. As I had made a short comment, I said our responsibility here is to bring the school to the community in hopes that the community will get closer to the school. And that's the whole idea of our responsibility for this school. And let me just say, from here on, in whatever missions you have to accomplish or get involved, the radio station here will be at your service, at the service of Hovnanian School, as we have been over the past many, many years. Stephanie, how do you feel today? How do you feel after this news of getting appointed head of the school, which you attended?
Yes, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here. I'm feeling extremely energized, extremely hopeful. This is a very exciting time, and as you mentioned, I myself attended the school. It's in a moment of vulnerability. It's nerve-wracking. It's a big responsibility, as you mentioned. Our entire community relies on this gem of a school. It's the only one of its kind that exists in this entire area and is producing amazing results. And so I'm really looking forward to this, and as Nazad mentioned, I'm excited to be a part of a team at this school now. I'm surrounded by really great people who are experts in their field, and now we can all lean on each other to then work together toward our mission, as opposed to it being relied on one person before. We have a really great group of people.
I'd like to echo what you just said, and that's something very, very important. We have a professional team, people who are participating in the community life are professionals. We had a stage, an age where we had less professional people who really felt with their heart for the goodness of the community and betterment of the nation. But now we have turned the page and we are working with professionals, one of whom is Nazar, and I know the list of the board members are equally impressive. Stephanie, what is your vision of the school? What would you, there is always, the school is a great institution. We would like to make it even greater. That's the whole idea. So we'd like to build on the positive that has been achieved. What is your mission? What is your vision?
Of course, so we of course have our school's mission. But to put it simply, I personally think a vision needs to be something that an entire community can really rally around. It should be something that people can easily remember. My personal vision is to make Hovnanian School the first choice school for Armenian families in this area. Without a doubt, it should be the first choice school. We should have proven a track record that everybody wants to come here, without a doubt. And so there's a lot that's going to go into making that vision come to life. But I just was recently listening to a TED Talk from Brendan Bouchard, and he was talking about, the phrase we've heard, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And so of course I want to focus on the vision, but I want to focus on this process to get there. And I want to make sure that right now, this is a very important time for me. I'm not going to get this time back. First time in the role, first beginnings in this role, to make sure that I'm really present in the discovery that's happening, the planning that needs to happen before jumping into a lot of execution. So of course there's plans and there's a vision, but I want to stay present in this moment because we're never going to get this time back of having me as a new head of school, and I look forward to that.
Many times I like the quote, I think at Bernard Shaw, whoever said it, says, people look at things and say why, and I look at things and say why not? Why not have a choir for Hovnanian School? Why not have a sports team for it? So that powerful dedication that comes with these visions is very, very important. And tell us more about yourself. If people want to know everything about you. What can you tell us about yourself?
Oh, sure. So I grew up in New Milford. I attended Hovnanian School. After finishing Hovnanian School, I went to Dwight Englewood. Both fantastic experiences that then led me to Villanova University, right outside Philadelphia, at which I studied communication. I studied interpersonal and organizational communication, which has helped me throughout my entire career in enrollment management and supporting school growth. So that's been my career up until now, helping various institutions, various educational programs grow what they're doing and have more of an impact. So as I look forward, one of the pillars I'm focused on is serving more students. And that's something that I've done in my entire career, like I said, across various institutions, but this one is really special. And every school has something special to offer, but this one is even more near and dear to my heart since it's somewhere that I attended, and now both of my children attend there as well.
As our enrollment of the school is one of the first questions going to come to mind, along with the tuition. Comment.
Well, enrollment is up. I've said this repeatedly, but tuition, it is not an easy pill to swallow in northern New Jersey when public schools are as good as they are. But public schools do not give you the community. They do not give you the language skills that Hovnanian School does. Your public school child is not going to have the same understanding of their culture and heritage as you do at Hovnanian School. So the way I think about it is, we could just talk about the numbers, purely the numbers. It costs us approximately $23,000 to $24,000 to educate a child at Hovnanian per year. We charge with fees all in about $17,000. We've actually this year decided to lump in all the fees together, so our tuition is one number. We don't want to surprise parents with additional ticky-tack fees, etc. Now they know kind of their all-in price from the get-go. But 17 and 24 are, they're $7,000 apart, which means this community is subsidizing each and every child at the school. And it's a few members of the community. We have large donors that are provided to our endowment, but then it's the parents. The parents are attending events, and we do hear that we may hold a lot. We do hold a lot of fundraisers, but this is the reason. It's because we are not charging what we could and what we should to counter the cost of educating each child. So that's, in terms of the tuition, that's one thing. I think if we can present to the world to our community the value of the school, then I don't think we're going to have a problem filling up the school at whatever tuition. Dwight Englewood fills up its school with a $50,000 plus tuition. And they're in northern Jersey too. They have the same challenges we do, and yet they're able to find parents. And yes, they provide financial aid, as do we, for those who can't afford the current tuition. But I think that with the right leadership, with the right touch and tone, with the right communication, with the board strategy being implemented, I do think that that's the next step, which is that value proposition will become more and more clear. My son just graduated from Hovnanian. From his class, most people chose to go to public school, but those who didn't applied to some very prestigious private schools. And from his class of 12, we have somebody attending Horace Mann this year. We have people that have gotten into Dwight Englewood. They've gotten into other top-notch private schools. And in public school, we just received word from Aden that he just got accepted into the honors classes for English, for social studies, for physics. So that to me is proof positive that the school is doing what it needs to do to educate the kids. Right? So they're not missing out on that spectrum. On the other hand, the Armenian language knowledge, the love of his culture, the love of each other, where they're still, we see from our graduates when they leave that they gravitate back to their Armenian friends. They don't succumb to peer pressure when in high school, when in college. They have a strong sense of self. These are the additional things that the school is providing. So when we do a good enough job of marketing these pluses, I think we'll get most of the way there to Stephanie's vision to make this the first choice school for every Armenian in the area. It really ought to be. And if we can get our enrollment up high enough of full paying students, then we will also have enough to provide financial aid for all of the students that might not be able to afford a tuition that high. So and we're seeing the fruits of that. I think Stephanie can speak to this, but our enrollment is up year over year from last year. I think we're up, how many kids? 10 kids? 12? 14 children. And what's really heartening about that is many of them are in kindergarten, which means these are kids that are not coming just to leave in kindergarten, which is usually a drop-off point for the school.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming in at kindergarten, and we expect them to be there through the whole term of the schools, from 1st to 8th grade.
Stephanie, can you add anything about the tuition and or enrollment? What is your take?
Sure. So Nazat touched on it. It really comes down to perceived value. And as I've mentioned in my career, I've supported a lot of different institutions, and they all have something to offer. But it comes down to this perceived value, and that's each individual customer looking at what is my expected benefit, subtract my perceived cost, right? And that perceived cost isn't just monetary, but it's also energy and time, right? And that result then gives you your perceived value. And that could be logical, it could be emotional, it could be physical, but you have to tap into and understand what that perceived value is for our community members. So when you think about our unique value proposition, Nazar touched on a lot of it already in what we offer, but I believe where this enrollment challenge, if you will, lies, or rather the solution, is in our alumni and various other stakeholders and raving fans that we have. So we have 47 years of students who've graduated, their parents, and looking at how Hovnanian as a foundation has led them to where they are now. That story tells itself, right? They are the product. And so if I could tap into one area, that's where I'm going to be focusing, bringing them back, how to stay involved. And again, that doesn't just have to necessarily be enrollment, meaning a student who goes to our school and their parent, but it could be various stakeholders in our community, like this program here today that supports our school. People who want to rent our facilities because they want to support us. People who want to volunteer their time for after school programs to support our kids. All of that, all of these stakeholders will help us grow our enrollment in the end.
You know, you speak about after school program. I always had the idea, looking at schools in the neighborhood. Nazar, maybe questions for you. Has the school ever thought of adult school, where you could use the facilities at night for adult school? And there are many, many courses which can be offered. I know it's easy to give advice, but I just wanted to know if you ever thought of that.
Well, we've considered a lot of after-school weekend activities, academic activities. I think one thing that we're really focused on, and part of the issue is a staffing issue, right? But one of the things we would really like to do is, it's a shame to me that our kids graduate in 8th grade and their Armenian education ends, right? So, and I think there's a market for this, and it doesn't cannibalize from the school itself to provide a Saturday Armenian school for those who have an Armenian background. So for example, there could be a separate class for Hovnanian graduates who have a certain level of Armenian, right? So it could be a book club guided by a teacher. It could be an Agump style, but they must speak in Armenian. So it's something that keeps their Armenian going. And in addition, for children who have graduated out of the church Armenian programs, etc., some way to bring them into Hovnanian also to continue on that Armenian education, because it doesn't make sense for it to end in the 8th grade. There's a lot more learning to be done, and like you said, even for adults, this could be something down the line, because we never stop learning, and we want to be the center of Armenian learning in the Bergen County area.
Stephanie, you're fortunate to be working with very, very good families, very respected families. And I know sometimes it is not the easiest thing to handle all the Armenian families, but what is your message to members of these families in terms of getting close to the school, in terms of supporting you? What would you like to tell people listening to you? I know you've covered it, but once again.
Sure. When I think about our children's development, right, when you think about their childhood, the majority of their time is spent at school, right? And the school environment really impacts how a child then develops into adulthood. And to have stability in their environment, to have a secure and familiar place, a place where they're loved and known as an individual, is really important in their future development. And so for our K through 8 model, where these students are coming in, well, pre-K through 8, right? But the traditional name is K through 8. They're coming in and they're staying with us throughout, like Nazan mentioned, Aden, who just graduated. They've been there this whole time and they're cared for, they're seen, they're building a strong identity, and that foundation through your school environment cannot be replicated anywhere else. And so for parents to really understand how important it is on that decision of where they're sending their children to school day in and day out, what are they surrounded by, those values, it's the top of it.
That's really, really beautiful. For me, there's different definitions of a school. What is a school? Everybody comes up with a definition. For me, the one I have accepted over the years and have used it is that it is maybe a four-walled structure where the future gets incubated. And honestly, we have passed that stage of incubation with people like you who are now participating in the school's life and leading the school. That's really historic. I really have never experienced this type of closeness of a person who has gone to school and now serving the school as the head, as the principal of the school. So that's something very important. Another thing about what you said reminds me of a comment of a friend who said, when I go to Hovnanian School, when I drop my kids, it's though I'm dropping the kids at my grandma's house. They feel so comfortable and so safe in that environment. And what better thing do you have? What more valuable thing that you have than the kids? So it's very, very understandable. You said it so beautifully. Nazar, going back, many people, and I'll be honest about this, many people ask, what happened to Chris? What happened to Chris? And I have to say, echo what you said, that you really complimented Chris for the beautiful job he has accomplished. So in a sense, maybe you can tell us what's happening to Chris again, because you have already said it and I want it to be repeated, please.
Sure, happy to. But first of all, I just want to say dropping your kids off at Hovnanian School is better than dropping your kids off at Grandma. Because each room has a qualified teacher teaching them something amazing in addition to the grandma level of nurturing, right? But so obviously, so Mr. Chris joined us during the beginning of COVID, and I mean, he did a tremendous job guiding the school through that. Again, our plan was always to have a leadership team, and it's a written piece of the board strategic plan that we have to give people the jobs that they're most qualified to do. Mr. Chris is, and those who know Mr. Chris know how excellent he is. Our facilities have never looked better. In terms of his community relationship, he attends pretty much every Armenian event out there, and speaks on behalf of the school and represents the school beautifully. We want him to focus on those things. Those are the things he does very, very well. And
as you were talking to me, Stephanie's looking at you and agreeing with everything you're saying. So she's in complete agreement with what you're saying, and I'm sure she values Chris's presence there and support.
I just want to be clear. The board's sole employee, we would lose our accreditation if we did anything. The board's sole employee is our head of school. The head of school then hires, fires, reviews everybody else. So we could not have installed Mr. Chris as our chief operating officer if Ms. Torosian hadn't agreed to that and made it happen.
Stephanie, everybody looks forward to your leadership, and there's so much support, so much love you're enjoying from the community, from the board. And in closing, a statement.
Just feeling a lot of gratitude, honestly. I'm grateful to be here today and have this platform. I'm grateful to the opportunity. And as I started off with, it comes down to the team that I'm surrounded by. And that's within the walls of the school, but Mr. Chris, Deegan Hedda, other members of the staff at the school, and also the broader community. There's just a lot of support, and I welcome it all. I welcome all the feedback, positive and constructive, and I just, like I said, I look forward to this journey with that ultimate vision in mind. So thank you again.
Nazar, any final comments?
Other than to say I'm really, really rejuvenated and excited about the next phase of the
Bravo.
school. I think we're on the right track to be incredibly successful. So it's just a very exciting time.
I wish both of you luck, and as I said in the beginning of the program, if there's anything we can do here, just bring the community closer to the school closer to community. This mi casa tu casa, so this is your house, and we dedicate the next song to the angels at Hovnanian School, and it is a very special song sung by the kids. So anytime we hear kids sing, it's a different emotion, and I hope we'll hear the school, Hovnanian School, sing and bring us the younger generation with a lot of song and Armenian culture. Thank you.